All right, everybody. So excited to have with us this evening Mr. Rob Munch. He has been one of my friends for a very, very long time. We worked together through the John Maxwell team and met each other years ago and have been accountability partners. And I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that as we go through our journey. But he was a Navy Command Master Chief, and I'm sure he's going to talk through that journey as we discuss a little bit about some of the wins and the learns that he's had over the years through his career, and now, after retiring from the military, and some of the things that he's doing in the community from a nonprofit standpoint, and then also, through his church and some other organizations that he works with. So he has definitely been a mentor to me, challenged me over the years, coached me a little bit, and then, like I said, been an accountability partner with me. And I'm so excited to have him join us this evening. So Rob, let's just have some dialogue. Let's talk through, your experience in the military and what's that's looked like over the years, and just have a good little discussion.
Sure. Well, you you started about being an accountability partner. I will tell you, you can't have a better accountability partner than Miss Beth over here. Uh, she keeps me in line on Friday mornings at 7 o'clock in the morning, my time out here in the Mountain Standard Time, and it is nothing but good to have that conversation each time. As she mentioned, yes, I'm a retired Command Master Chief in the United States Navy. For background for the other services, that would be a command sergeant major in the Army and the Marine Corps, I believe it is, and the Air Force would be a command chief master sergeant. Yeah. So with that though, but it was a journey to get there. I enlisted in the Navy 2 days after my 18th birthday and 3 days after I graduated from high school in January of my high school year. I left Albuquerque and went to the Great Lakes in Illinois. So a big difference between New Mexico and Illinois winter and whatnot. My first tour in the Navy actually was in the desert of California. So I wanted to see more of the world and the ocean, if you will. I've spent 7 years of that on it. But I went over to the Philippines and did a tour over the Philippines as a young man, flying C-130s. I flew C-130s for about 16 years total, or something close to that. I spent 15 years of my career outside of the United States, so I got to see an awful lot of the world of Southeast Asia. In fact, a lot of what we hear about what's going on with China today in the South Pacific and or South China Sea. I spent a lot of time in the South China Sea and Taiwan and all of those areas up and down that coast. Hong Kong, which I'm really sorry to see what happened to them during the COVID and whatnot like that. But over a period of time, I learned leadership. As I've mentioned to Beth before, I'm a firm believer in two things about leadership. One, you're kind of born with it in some cases, and in other cases, you grow from it. But either way, it's leadership, and you learn from it. As I said, I flew for a number of years, and then I left flying because I always like to tell this story. I was in the jungles of the Philippines, or living in the Philippines at the time, where the temperature ranges around 90 degrees and 100% humidity during the middle of the summer. So they're telling me that they wanted to send me to Antarctica to fly C-130s in Antarctica. And I'm sort of like, yeah, right. Okay, where's the next ship leaving San Diego so I can get on it? And
Yeah,
that's what I
that's a bit.
basically
That's
did.
kind of a big jump in temperature change, just a tad bit.
Yeah. Just a tad. Just yeah. So I went to sea for a number of years after that, and I learned a lot because while I was at sea, I worked on what would we call Maverick now and Top Gun Maverick those aircraft that you saw on Top Gun, I worked on them on the flight deck for a year or so. Excuse me, there, and that was a great learning opportunity. And I'll relate a little bit of that because I had 42 members, sailors, and six multi-million dollar F-18 aircraft, the same aircraft that Maverick played with in Top Gun, um, on the flight deck, while we went to places like Australia and to Thailand and all those nice exotic places. But as you can see in the background behind me, there's an awful lot of water, and there ain't an awful lot of people running around back there. And then to keep all those guys safe and all those airplanes flying safely, it was a very learning experience. One I'm very glad that I learned, and I experienced, I should say. Um, One thing I've learned that I've used since then is, and we see that now a lot of times in the unfortunate part of things that happen in America. But this was an opportunity. We had an F-14 aircraft kind of have a major mishap on the flight deck, and I ran to the situation instead of running from it. And I was in my young 40s, let's say. I was around 40 years old at the time, and I was, it tells you kind of how you are as a person. Are you going to run to the situation, or are you going to run and hide from the situation? And I would rather be the person that ran to the situation. Fortunately, like I say, I'm here, and nothing really went bad, and it was all taken care of because another individual who knew what they were doing ran to the situation and took care of it rather swiftly. But it did teach me leadership. It did teach me a lot. One of the couple of things, and I may mention this a little bit more. And for all you other service members out there, just bite the bullet with this, because I flew C-130s with, and I was a jump master for a time for the Navy SEAL team. And in my years after leaving the military, I've done a lot of work with teams. And in my eyes, there is not a better team of workers than Navy SEALs. And you can take the Hollywood part of it all you want, and that's great. But I will tell you that a Navy SEAL will turn his back to another Navy SEAL. Why? Because he'll tell him, I have your back. And that is a lot of what leadership is all about, is having your workers back when it's needed to have. And also, of course, when not to. My last tour in the Navy was kind of interesting. I flew C-130s in the Persian Gulf War, the first war, and then I had the opportunity. I was still in active service. I was in charge of the Naval Space Command, which now has its own service, if you will. But I had the Navy component as we were, in a sense, disbanding it to give it to the Air Force to work, which I guess somewhere along the line, for you Air Force guys, you couldn't handle it, so they made their own service out of it. But you'll live with it. So and that's just fun with the other military services. I'm sure you'll have fun with
I was
this
gonna
order.
say, yes, for all of my Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marine friends that are listening in, I'll make sure you've got the contact information for Coach Munch. So you can contact him and y'all can banter together. But yeah, I think you said it earlier, they're truly, when we think about any military or service member or first responder that puts their life on the line for Americans and those outside of America, so that we are protected. And there's no greater thing than the service to me than the service that you guys have done for us and are continuing to do for us. So, I know there's a lot of joking that goes around, and you and I've talked about this before, but when we talk about service men and women that are out there protecting us, it doesn't matter what what branch you're with, there's a lot of appreciation. But I can say the Navy SEALs, just bottom line, they're just badass. Like there's that I don't think there's anybody that can argue that point. So anyway, but I'll let you continue. But I definitely wanted to add that in.
Well, one of the great things about the military service, and one of the reasons I went into it was to get my GI Bill, you know, uh, and whatnot. So in '05, it was time to retire. So I retired from the Navy, but I'm also um, was a big participant in my church, and I rose to sometimes as leadership it is what it is. And so, regardless of whether you're a military member doing command and control, or you're a church member doing as much as you can do EI kind of work, I decided I love leadership and I wanted to go on with it. So I went and I got a bachelor's degree followed by a master's degree in organizational leadership, and that's where I got involved in coaching because and during my master's degree, my concentration was in coaching and mentoring. So um, I have training in it and I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing people and coaching get better at what they do through their own thought processes, if you will. But a little bit more about the difference between sometimes in leadership is when you're leading a team of sailors or Marines or whatnot, you've got rank on your collar, if you will, and you can tell them what to do. If you don't do it, I'm going to make you do 50 push-ups. And if you don't think so, let's hit the deck and do it now, buddy. And then you'll do that work afterwards. You can go that way. But when you're in a church and you're trying to do leadership in a church, that ain't going to get past the first word
What?
out of your
No,
mouth.
you lost all of your volunteers at that point. You're done.
Yeah,
X-nay.
they're gone. See
Yeah.
ya.
See ya.
So
You thought you had some volunteers on that committee, but it's not happening now.
no, they are gone, and rightfully so. And you're gone too within short order. But then you have to go into the opposite end of leadership, and which is to go to their better angels, literally in some senses, to do their better angels to get them to volunteer to help those who can't help themselves or need help within the church because the church just can't handle you know and let's face it, my preacher pastor, he tells us to tithe all the time, but a lot of that has to be done on volunteer for services, just not so he can get rich, but so that the church can survive in its capacities. So yeah, then it's a matter of getting people to volunteer, and for the most part, I got that pretty well. Maybe once or twice I was called an SOB in the foyer or something, but generally that didn't happen too often. It was pretty good about getting people to volunteer their services. But it is a different piece of leadership to go from something where you have a positional authority to having something that says you have to have the desire. Nonprofits know all that as well and as I run a nonprofit, I know that too. I actually run a nonprofit for New Mexico here, New Mexico Veteran Business Advocates, and so we do education. But I have a heart for veterans. I love veterans. I am one, but I also, as Beth, you so beautifully spoke about how we know that we've done our service to the nation, but we learn and veterans learn, and this is a good leadership to remember as you go through this, is that we learn teamwork. We have to, because we get told, even with a guy like me who has so much hair on top of his head, have to get a haircut. Now haircuts have to conform to, and the uniform in which you have to wear has to conform to standards. And if they don't, you heard the guy before tell you what you have to do. So you learn teamwork, but you learn something else, and you learn service, and not necessarily service to country, which you do, but what you really learn is service to each other. And that is a big piece of what goes on, service to each other. And that helps build teams. So if you're in the process of building a team and everybody's in every other direction that you can face on the compass, then you're not really building that team, the camaraderie or that ability to see where each of you fall into place in that. Oh, by the way, and Beth with her disc training can do a great job of doing that for you, by the way.
Appreciate
Um,
that.
no, you're more than welcome. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it.
True
And
statement.
so,
Hey, it's made a world of difference in my life. That's for sure.
yeah. So but those are ways of things that you need to do to build a team. And having done that over the course of many, many years and have seen the ability, I can't do everything. At one point in my time in my life, when I was a junior petty officer, E4, E5, and E6, to some degree E6, I thought I could do it all. I could do it all until I got put in charge of a group of sailors fixing airplane engines, and I realized I can't do it all. And so that's another piece of it. And in your teamwork building and in your leadership, if you work at what's best for you, what you know you can do best, whatever that might be, and then bring on people that can do the things that you don't do so well. And we all have things we don't do so well. John Maxwell, he explains it best of anybody I've seen. And, I've read a lot on different leadership and different groups of people, but do what you got best and then leave the rest to those that you can trust to do it, and then train them to be good leaders, and they'll make for a great team.
Yeah, 100%. Rob, it's always a pleasure, talking with you. I think you brought up so many lessons. I think one of the ones, and we've talked about it before from the standpoint of, position. They talk about it in the 5 levels of leaders, right? So people go in and they have a position. So in the military, you have a rank, you have a position, and people have to follow based upon that position. Like they have to give you respect because of that. But from a corporate standing or a nonprofit standing, you, in order to get that respect and to be able to get the trust and to be able to get the influence, you have to earn it. And I think, you talked a little bit about that as you've talked about your different journeys. I know that you're part of nonprofit, part of BNI, part, having been prior military and all, there's a lot of different things that you juggle on a day-to-day basis, and influence and help to mentor and coach. You talked a lot about mentoring and coaching other people. And I've seen that journey, being able to be a part of that. I mean, we've been through a lot over the last almost 10 years together. And
Yes, yes.
we life's ups and downs, right? We talk about learns and wins, and we've been through sad times together. We've been able to celebrate great things together. And so I think from a journey of helping each other, I think we talked about it. It takes working with other people to be able to do what we do, or what leaders do. If you don't have somebody that can be an accountability partner with you, or coach you, or mentor you, or those things, we've talked about it before with some of the other guests that have been on, and on some of the other things that we've kind of posted on the site. But I think you touched on so much gold tonight, and then definitely we had a few laughs for sure. So is there any like kind of last minute words of wisdom that you'd like to share? I know you had all kinds of nuggets, but out of your journey, like, what is one of the biggest things that you think has been the most impactful to you over the years? Or maybe one of the top kind of things.
Well, one of the things, and I didn't mention this, but it's throughout the military, and it's throughout. It should be out into corporate life, and I see it in two things: is always be willing to help someone to your position, and always be willing to accept someone else's help up the ladder, if you will. In my journey in life right now, I'm at the pinnacle, or have served in the pinnacle. I mean, having 4,000 plus sailors underneath me or indirectly underneath me over the course of my career, over the last tour of my career, um, always know that there's always somebody climbing the ladder that you can help. And if you're wanting to get higher in that, do not be afraid to take on a mentor and find a good mentor who will help you along the way. And if you're in a leadership position of a team leader, always find the right people for the right seats on the right bus going in the right direction. You know, not John Maxwell, but Jim Collins, who's a great friend of John Maxwell's, has put that in his book. And it is so important to make sure the right people are on the right jobs,
Yeah.
doing the right things. Because if you don't have it that way, your team won't function well.
Nope, you're 100%. You know, from a strengths finder standpoint or a DISC standpoint or Myers-Briggs, and you know, you go through different tools that are out there. There's ways to identify what people's strengths are, right? You talked about it earlier. DISC is one of those tools. But I think you're spot on when we talk about, you know, get the people in the right position. You know, if you want to move up, then help them in their journey. When you help others get what they want, they're going to help you get what you want, right? And so we
That's
can't,
exactly
you know,
right.
that's right. You can't do it any more than that. Like, that's just bottom line. Because when you serve other people, they are going to make you look really good. I always say I'm not the smartest one in the room, because if I'm the smartest one in the room, I need to go find another room, right? You want to surround yourself with people that know what they're doing, that are great at their job. They're called to do that. And so we appreciate you taking time this evening with us. I know we ran a little bit longer than normal, but definitely enjoyed the time today. And I guess, Rob, I'll talk to you in a couple of days. But thanks so
Yes, you
much
will.
for
This one will be extra early because I got my nonprofit to go to.
that's
And I'm
right.
sorry